got babe number 2. Babe number 1 is in the audience. Her fiance, Wayne Randy, somewhere around here. I'm Richard Corderoli, fortunate enough to be the Special Collections Librarian here at Klein Library. And when it comes to Grand Canyon and Colorado River, I like to attend all these lectures. I can always learn something from them. I'm looking forward to hearing the latest updates on the historic boat project, which is near and dear to my heart. As a river guide and boatman for a long time, always like to see the boats up in the old visitor center in the courtyard. And they're no longer there, but last year for the 70th anniversary of non-renewable's first trip, the Wind went on display at the seabed at the new visitor center. This year, putting in a plug, this is the 100th anniversary of the Stone Boat, the oldest boat in the collection. So, little plug, maybe that one can go on display this year. And a lot of anniversaries coming up. Next year, 10, 11, 12. Every year, I think, has an anniversary boat that belongs to the Parks collection. Jan said something about Q standing for quirky. And so Jan and I have known each other for about 20 years. We did a river trip together back then for the Arizona Archaeological and Historical Society, fondly referred to as ARC and HIS. And we did a reenactment at the Bert Loper boat, which is still down, one of a couple of boats that are still down in the canyon. And Jane asked me to do that. For a long time, she said I was the only one who ever agreed to do a reenactment with her. I'm not sure about that. But we did an on-land reenactment of Bert Loper's Surmise in 24.5 mile route, a dry land version. Jan is, what is your title now? Let's see, I forgot. I met her as a park archaeologist. She was a deputy chief of science resource management, acting director of the science center. She's now, I don't know, deputy something or other. Yeah. She's got a bachelor's and a master's in anthropology. Her master's thesis is application of heavy mineral analysis to Grand Canyon ceramics. There was no Amazon at that time, but it would have made the top of the list. Brynn, I haven't known as long since the project started, which we say here, 2003. Is that how long it's been? 6 years. Brynn is a conservator now down at WAC, Western Area Conservation Center down in Tucson. Been down there for about that same time, 7 years. She does, these boats are not being restored, rebuilt, they're being stabilized, cleaned and stabilized. And an important distinction. Although Brad Dimmick, taking a look at him, and some of the other boatmen in the audience when we helped move these boats, said it's real easy to make these seaworthy. So if you ever want to do it. But Brad has done some lines drawings from these, taken all the measurements. The group out of Maritime Museum in, I forget where, Cam? They did the line drawings at San Francisco. And Brad has been reproducing boats, and he's built a new boathouse, and we can look forward to some of these replicas going down the river with Brad Dimmick. Interestingly enough, both Jan and Brynn went to school at the University of New York College at Buffalo. How about that? Which I thought was quite interesting. Anyway, Brynn is responsible for all the dirty work, cleaning these boats. And I don't know if Rich Turner is in the audience. He wasn't last week's lecture, but anyway, Rich Turner Dory Boatman, did a lot of volunteer work cleaning these boats. And a lot of other people have helped out too with this project. So, without further ado, Jan and Brynn.
It's quite an introduction, it's kind of hard to follow that. But what we're going to do tonight, Brynn and I together are going to talk about what we've been doing with boats. Most folks are familiar with them, having seen them in the courtyard up on the South Rim. And what we're going to do is talk about what's happened since they've sort of left the courtyard, and talk a little bit about the process, a little bit about the history. And there's so many folks in here who know so much about the history of the boats that we're not going to talk a lot about that other than show the boats in action. And really what this project is about is what do we learn from these objects once they're in the care of the collection? What stories can they still tell? So with that, let me get started. And it moves quicker than I thought. Everybody here hopefully is familiar with our location in northern Arizona. And as you would probably guess, this presentation goes someplace other than just Cheering Flagstaff. So a location shot for those who aren't familiar with it, Grand Canyon in the middle and the bottom slide there. You know, river running in Grand Canyon has had a long and storied history. And you look at the river today and you see how placid it can be and how calm in certain areas. And it's sometimes hard to believe when you look at the way we go boating today and the recreational experience that we have, what it was like 100 years ago or more. So today, you know, we have all sorts of crafts, from the big pontoon boats and the small rowboats, the wooden dories, and 20,000 plus people a year go down the river. But you know, it wasn't always that way. Beginning in 1869, you had John Wesley Powell going down for his first endeavor, and the active recreational boating has changed considerably over the years. We are fortunate to have the collection that we have of historic boats representing essentially every era of river running in Grand Canyon. It's pretty rare for an archaeologist to actually have photographs of anything they're working on that actually represent what they're working on. Something about prehistory and history, I guess. So as I move into the program of looking at historic objects, we are very fortunate to have just a wealth of information from the written records and the diaries that went along with these boats, the physical objects themselves, and in many cases quite a bit of still footage and also live footage of them in action. So the stone boat, and Hugh just mentioned that we're coming up on the anniversary of the stone trip. 1909, Julius Stone and Nathaniel Galloway, and this boat represents the oldest one in the collection, and it's really probably one of the most elegant that we have. The collection sort of moves in time from 1909 quickly into the Cole Brothers boats, 1911, the Edith and the Defiance. Both boats are in the park collection. The Edith is up on the South Rim in storage right now. The Defiance is on display up in Green River. Both boats had been at one point on display. The Defiance used to be in a little lean-to outside of Cole's studio. The Edith had been at the courtyard of the visitor center for, oh boy, quite a long time, for pretty darn close to 40 years. The other side of the slide, you can see the Glen, the 1923 USGS trip. This was the Cook's boat, and you can see it being portaged up above. And every time these boats hit anything, any rock, any ding, any repair, those are the sorts of things that show up later when we're looking at doing the conservation work. And you look at that ding right there, and you know, that's the sort of thing a conservator is actually going to be able to see. Yeah, it hurts, doesn't it? But that was what most folks are familiar with the cold images and the film itself. There's another one coming up here. The process of lining the boats didn't necessarily get them through any better at times. They got just this ding. And it's really interesting, when we first started this project, everybody was talking about us, restoring them. There's nothing, we're not restoring them. We really and truly need to have all of the character that they developed during their livelihood on the river is the things that we want to be able to tell the stories of. And if we, doesn't that hurt too? But they're okay. They're okay. They're still going. Fascinating, isn't it? When you see how they, you look at what we do today in boating, and you look at that, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not sure I would have been that comfortable going down there. But We go from 1909 and Julius Stone, we go to 1911 with the Cole brothers and those clips that you saw. 1923 is starting to be a little bit more rigorous, a little bit more planned out. The 1923 expedition is a great example where USGS did